So we've got Karen Schaler here, who is a three-time Emmy Award winner and an amazing author and just so much energy. And if you don't follow her on TikTok, you totally should because she's super fun to watch. Her new book is Every Day is Christmas, and we're going to talk about the difference between screenplays and books because she has a lot of success in the screenplay and screenwriting industry. So, Karen, tell me a little bit about what you've been doing with your screenplays and stuff.
Oh, thank you, Shirley. And first of all, I love what you're doing. I love that we're giving tips and encouraging writers because I'm always looking for tips too, right? We can really
Right.
be a community and learn from each other. And I'm so glad you asked me to talk about this topic. So always wanted to be a novelist, but it's so hard to break in, as anyone
Mhm.
knows that's, watching us and listening. And it's also really hard to break in to write a movie. But I had an opportunity where I'd always wanted to write a Hallmark movie. That was like my dream. I was a war correspondent, so I had a whole different life, a crime reporter on television, and I had this 2-week break. So I wrote this movie that ended up not being sold to Hallmark, but it was Netflix's first original Christmas movie, A Christmas Prince. And a lot of folks
Mhm.
will remember that,
Yes.
not just because it's a sweet movie like Hallmark that landed on Netflix, but because it blew up because the Netflix audience is like, what is this movie? We've never
Mhm.
seen it, but we like it. So after that, the next one I thought, okay, I'm going to get it for next Netflix because now I have
Mhm.
a hit movie on Netflix and it's called Christmas Camp. Loved it. It was all about kind of different characters that come for their Christmas therapy at Christmas Camp.
Mhm.
I thought it was very Netflixy. It ended up going to Hallmark.
Right.
Christmas Camp book was bought by Hallmark. So if you're precious with your story and you really love it, I really learned my best way to protect it is to write the novel. So my second
Right.
movie's coming out, Christmas Camp, and I'm like, oh, I'm writing the novel. That's how I jumped in the very, very first time. I fell in love with the idea so much I created real life Christmas camps where you go to hotels and I have all these fun events. But
Right.
that's something that's important for people to understand. We're talking about screenwriting and being a novelist or a novelist writing a
Mhm.
screenplay. These days it's so competitive. I'm in the member of the Writers Guild and we have been on strike, more than 100
Mhm.
days. And hopefully when this airs, my fingers crossed that we will be out of a strike, but it's
Right.
tough. We all have had to juggle and do different things. And so that's why if you find a great story, I always say, find different ways. Don't just end with a movie or with a novel. And then my thought was, I'm going to write novels that I can adapt to movies. I'm going to go the more
Mhm.
traditional route. Fast forward to this year, and one of my favorite movies came out in 2018 called Every Day is Christmas,
Mhm.
starring, ready for this, multi-Grammy winner Toni Braxton.
It's
And
amazing.
that was pretty mind blowing because I was still a baby writer. I just had my
Mhm.
first movie come out, and Lifetime reached out to me and said that Toni Braxton wanted to be the Scrooge. And that's pretty much all
Oh
they
my
had, like
gosh.
a Christmas Carol like story.
Right.
And did I want to pitch? I didn't even know what that meant, Shirley. I was like, yes. You just say yes. Whenever you're not
Right.
sure and something scares you, I
Right.
say yes and
I
I
can
Google
do.
it or
Yep.
figure it out
Yep.
later. And so, long and short, my idea for that movie for her was picked. And I got to work with her and with the producers and with the Lifetime Network
Awesome.
executives and create this beautiful story. I'm so proud of it because
Mhm.
it's one of the few that didn't get changed a lot from my original concept. So I just fell in love with that movie. And it's on Amazon Prime right now. People are saying it's the kind of movie and book you can watch or read all year long because of the message in it about
Right.
really making time for what matters most. That's the book that's coming out this year, but I included pictures from the set. Writing a
Right.
movie and writing novels are completely different, but not. I don't want it to scare
Mhm.
anybody, meaning you have the story, you have the characters. That's the hardest part. And we're going to teach you the mechanics to make sure you can do both.
Both forms of writing are about the same sort of thing, like getting that emotion across. That is super vital in a book as much as it is in a screenplay. You have less narrative to be able to do it in a screenplay. So you've really got to make sure you get that emotion on the page right away.
It's funny. I'm so glad you said that. When I first started off, even with my movie, I was plot driven in my mind
Mhm.
because I wanted to do something, Hallmark has hundreds of beautiful movies. And a lot of people that have said, well, they're the same, big city
Mhm.
girl goes to a small town. So I wanted to do with a Christmas Prince, something a little bit
Mhm.
different with a twist. So I used my own life as a journalist and she went
Mhm.
undercover to get the scoop on like a Playboy Prince. And I had something, even though I didn't cover royals, I had something similar I had seen where there was a lot of pressure and I felt bad
Mhm.
about how the paparazzi is. So using my real life experience, but that again is plot driven, right? At first on
Mhm.
the head, on the nose, you're like, okay, here's the plot, here's what's going to happen. And what I learned fast, Shirley, is what you just said. Everything is character driven. What I've learned the most is, of course, you want a great plot, and you want a great hook, and you want to spin, but it's all about character development. The tip that I learned that's the easiest. So you have your main character, you have your heroine, and I'm going to use a she in this case.
Mhm.
And so we introduce her, and she's going through something in life, and she wants something, and you're going to put 10 things things, in the way. It's going to get worse, 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 worse until she is forced to change, grow, and learn. And then right when you think everything's finally good for her, you're going to take it all away. And she's going to once again have to find a way to really let go of the old and embrace the new. And if you don't have what we call a character arc, if your character is really sweet and loving and loves little babies and cookies and ice cream at the beginning, and she loves it at the end, well, what in the world have you been doing for 2 hours or 300, 400 pages? So you really want to see the struggle and think of your own life. Whenever I have something Shirley going on, I'm like, well, there's one of my things in my way. You're like my journey of where I'm trying to go. I'm trying to get to that character arc. I've been given that in my own screenplays, especially at the beginning. They're like, where's your arc? I'm like, well, it's there amongst all this really cool stuff happening.
It's also look at the Christmas stuff.
I'm like, yeah, wait, there's like cookies and snowman and all of these fun things. But I think what's really important, in all seriousness, is they also said a lesson I learned is, when I say you have all these things happen to your heroine, but you also have to have them reacting, and you can't just have things happen to your person. They have to be an active role. We
were talking about characters. The two questions that I always like to ask and have people ask is, why did this happen in their past, and what was the impact on them? Because if you know why their parents got divorced and what was the impact on them, and why they were an only child and what was the impact on them, all of these little things grow up to make us into the tortured souls that we are. And the whole thing you were talking about how you don't give them the ending too fast, you make them fail. Failure is what teaches us. Your kids don't learn by succeeding all the time. You sadly have to let them fail. And you also have to do that to your characters. And that was the lesson that I learned with my very first book that's finally sold, because I wrote 10 books in 8 years before I sold my first one. So I had my character fail and then pick herself back up over and over and over again. And that ended up winning the award for the best romance of the year.
If you look at any story you have and you're just telling boy meets girl and all the fun things that they do, and you're like, this is a great love story. Even if you're writing a romantic comedy, there should be a moment you tear up, or you're like, oh, or you feel like, oh, if you're at a theater going, oh my gosh, this isn't happening. And those are moments that you want to find. Honestly, that's when I still have a hard time with, because I love piling on and making things happen. But then even in the growth period, to make sure that there's an active role. My first Hallmark movie, one of the first notes I got back from Hallmark was, okay, this setup was beautiful, but we're going to just throw out the first 3 pages because you need to hit them on the head really, really fast. And it's exactly what you said. We have less time. So make sure you study the format, make sure you read. I have an Amazon storefront. I have 5 writing books that you can just click on and find the ones that taught me, because I'm self-taught. I didn't go to school for this. And the biggest tip is to know that you can do it.